Hi there, good morning, good evening, good afternoon even, depending where you are in the world today. Welcome to My Brand Live. My name is Leela Singh and I'm a personal leadership and career growth coach. I work with career professionals, typically in the technology industry, who are wanting to elevate their life, their career, harness their A game and create new possibilities. In other words, to create the life they want to live by showing up as the best version of themselves. So I'd like to welcome each and every one of you who's watching this live today or catching up on replay. And if you're watching live today, then do say hello in the comments and let me know where you're watching from. And if you're watching on replay, then please do hashtag replay in the comments. And again, let me know where you're watching from today and do engage in the conversation. Ask any questions you'd like to me and today's guest in the comments. And before I kick off, I wanted to remind you that if you haven't already done so, do head over after this live and grab your copy of my personal brand playbook. The playbook covers the 6 key elements that I believe are fundamental to building a powerful personal brand in the workplace. And it also has a brand assessment where you can assess where you're at and where the gaps are for you to develop when it comes to your personal brand. And it shares some tips and strategies and best practices that you can take away and implement immediately. So we will share that link in the comments for you. If you haven't already done so, do go ahead and grab that copy at the end. So why have I chosen to assist people in the way that I've just described? Well, here's the thing. I've had a corporate career spanning a little over 25 years, where I embarked initially on a career in accountancy and then taking a leap to go into recruitment. And the reason for that was because at the time, being the quiet church mouse, lacking confidence, not speaking up, no one knowing who I was, I recognized that I needed to build my confidence, to make myself known, and to have people know the value that I bring to the table. And by taking myself massively out of my comfort zone and going to recruitment for a couple of years, it did all of that. It elevated my confidence significantly and essentially impacted the rest of my career in a really positive way. After spending that time in recruitment, I then moved into the tech industry. I joined what was formerly Electronic Data Systems in corporate finance, and they were acquired by Hewlett Packard. So I spent 16 years across the two businesses and spent the last 10 years of my career as a sales executive. And whilst I've always enjoyed everything that I've done through my career, there was always that wanting more. And over time, about 8 years ago, while I was still in Hewlett Packard, I then started to immerse myself extensively in my own personal development journey. And I became a certified master practitioner in NLP and hypnotherapy, accredited as a master coach, a speaker mentor, and an L&D trainer. And all of this in parallel to my responsibilities at work. And I've worked with some of the best coaches and mentors in the industry to hone my craft and to show up as the best version of me for both myself and for my clients. And I chose to leave my corporate career a little over 3 years ago now to establish and grow my coaching practice. And some of the things I'd like to share with you, my biggest learnings that are some of the philosophies that I live by, are these. Number one, your personal brand is your professional reputation. So create it. Number two, we can do anything we set our mind to. Anything is possible. Number three, we are the creators of our self-imposed limitations. Those are things that hold us back. In other words, we are responsible for holding ourselves back. Number four, we create our own reality through our lens of the world, our thoughts, our beliefs, and our actions. And therefore, we can change that. And finally, number five, most people are living a life of average when they can choose to live a life of extraordinary, creating possibilities and opportunities way beyond their imagination. And this is what I help my clients to create. And that brings me nicely to today's session. Today, I have an amazing guest joining me to speak about work, life, and health, increasing energy, managing stress, and performing better in the workplace. Finding that balance between work, life, and maintaining good health can be a huge challenge. And yet, we're developing and maintaining good health. This has a massive impact on our overall life, not least increasing our energy, managing stress levels, and enhancing our focus, our productivity, and our performance. So what is it we can do to create that optimal balance that has us playing our A game? Well, today I am speaking with Darren Putt, founder and managing director of Motus, a health coaching and consultancy business, where they work with both individuals and organizations to inspire real and long-term lasting change by helping people to make their health a priority. And today, Darren's going to be sharing with us his passion for making a global impact through changing the course of people's lives, through helping them to achieve optimal health. The common problems that clients have, the confusion the industry creates, and why gyms and diets don't work, and his core philosophies on health and fitness and on embracing health as a wider concept. So let me bring Darren into the conversation. Darren, good afternoon. How are you doing?
Good afternoon, Leila. I'm really good, thank you. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you for asking. It's great to have you here today. Thanks for joining me. So what I'd like to do, I've given a bit of context to who you are and what you do. So share a little bit with me about your business, Motus. Who are they? What do you do?
Thank you. Yeah, and thanks first of all for the invitation to be here today. So Motus, we formed, must be about 12 years ago now. Originally, it was just myself, and the team has expanded since then. So we've got a core team of now 5 coaches, and then we also bring in other experts with specific skills whenever we need them. And we work with private individuals, and we work with businesses and teams within larger businesses on all things health and performance.
Okay. And so what's Motus actually mean? I've always been curious. Tell me.
I get asked this question a lot, and the way we came up with the name is actually a bit of an amusing story. So I will share that with you now. Back when I originally set up Motus, it was going to be a partnership with, and this sounds like a risk, even just saying it now, with at the time my best friend and my girlfriend. Luckily enough, we saw sense and decided not to do that, and pulled out at the last minute. But I retained the name Motus for the business. And I remember distinctly sitting in my flat in Stratford, and we were like, what are we going to call this business? Because most fitness businesses are usually something quite cliche, or it's the name, or it's your initials, or something like that.
Yeah.
But right from that moment, we were like, no, we need another name, something that means something kind of beyond fitness, and also creates a bit of intrigue, so that we're not just another fitness business. And so the very highly intellectual way that we went through the naming process was to pour through a Latin dictionary and found something that jumped out that meant something to do with health. So Motus actually means movement or motion in Latin.
Right.
So straight away that jumped out to us, and Motus was born.
I see. Very interesting. And I guess it creates a conversation starter as well when you talk about what you do, right?
Absolutely. Usually when people walk into our offices, our consulting rooms, it's often one of the first questions they ask. They look up at the sign or the logo and say, so what does that mean?
Right. Very good. I like that. Thank you for sharing that. So tell me more about what is it you actually do? Tell me a bit about the background, how you've come to where you are today and why you do it. Okay.
So I've been coaching in the health and fitness industry for 20 years now, something like that. I started out, it was just me. I was a personal trainer. I did further qualifications, became a strength coach, qualifications in nutrition, studied loads of stuff around lifestyle, sleep, stress management, and the effect that has on the body. And so I guess bit by bit, we've added strings to the bow. And it was kind of part of the journey of understanding what health is about. I came out of uni very enthusiastic, thinking that I knew it all, like we all do, knowing some stuff about nutrition and knowing some stuff about exercise, started working with clients and was a bit disappointed, a bit confused that you could tell people all these things and it didn't actually necessarily change anything.
Right.
I remember going on a course, very early days of my coaching career, and they're saying, right, it's health is 50% nutrition and it's 50% exercise. Like, right, okay. Went back to the course or the conference the next year, and they're like, right, it's now 60% nutrition and 40% exercise. Went back the year after that, it's 70% nutrition and 30% exercise. And it's like, well, these ratios are changing, and we adapted how we worked as a result with clients, but it still wasn't necessarily enough. Because with the best will in the world, you can create the best exercise program, you can create the most perfectly balanced nutrition program, but if people can't actually apply it to their lifestyle, it's pointless. And so that almost led me back to study at university, where we did quite a lot on health psychology and behavior change. And I was like, oh, hang on, this is actually a game of helping people change their behavior. Actually, what they do is almost a secondary thing. So we got very into studying behavior change and psychology. And then it became very clear very quickly that there are all these other factors that affect our ability to execute on the behaviors that we want in health and in every area of life, really. Yeah. So that's how things like stress and sleep and kind of organizing ourselves basically became part of the service and part of the offering as well.
And what was the impact of that with your clients? What changed? Huge.
It was suddenly went from frustration, both for us and for clients, to something just clicking. And I guess also an understanding that you don't have to change everything at once, that you can change things bit by bit. And actually the benefit of that is that you're creating habits, essentially. And by creating those habits, that's what creates long-term change.
Right. And how do you encourage clients to instill those habits?
I think that the first thing is getting really, really clear on what someone's long-term vision is for their health, and why that's so important. What are the areas of life that's going to affect? Yeah. So often health is reduced to, it's how you look, it's aesthetics, it's what dress size you are, it's what waist size you are, all that stuff.
Yeah.
And health is so much more than that. It's our belief that health underpins everything that we do, and it can make everything better or it can make everything worse.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm curious because there's a few things I want to delve into here, because this is a really interesting topic for me. But before I do that, what are the common problems, let's say, or the patterns that you see with your clients? Because I believe, tell me a bit first of all about the type of clients you work with.
Sure. Okay. So our clients tend to be business owners, entrepreneurs, and then often fairly senior people in larger organizations as well. We've got a fairly even split on the personal side. And then when we work for businesses or within businesses, we work with a broader range of people, I would say, at different levels in an organization.
Right. So when you work with organizations, just out of curiosity, is that on one-to-one basis with people, or how does that work?
Mixture. So there's usually some level of one-to-one coaching, but there's also group coaching and often workshops as well. Right. I say one of the things we're pretty passionate about when it comes to working with organizations is that it can't be a flash in the pan. Like, so many businesses think they're doing health and well-being because they put on a seminar like once a year or once a quarter. We're not into that. It's like, if we want to work with businesses who are really committed to integrating health as part of their culture, and with that comes a commitment. So it needs to be something that's in place for a longer period of time, because that's what creates change.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree. So my understanding then, you're working often with people who are employees who work in organizations.
Yeah.
So now the question I asked before, now that we've cleared that, what are the common problems or the patterns that you see when those clients come to you?
Stress. It's the overriding theme, I would say, at the moment. And stress is in known stress. So, some people will come in and say, I'm really stressed, I'm struggling with X, Y, Z. And then you've also got a group of people who haven't realized that, who are not so aware, but it's quite clear to everyone else around them. And actually that can make relationships quite difficult within a business and within a family as well, at home too.
Yeah.
That's the important thing with health, is that it crosses over every area of life.
Yeah, the impact is on everything, isn't it? It's whether it's on your performance at work, your approach to work, the way that you show up at work, and then it impacts your relationships, whether it's professional, personally, your partner, your kids. Stress will impede on everything.
100%. Yeah, absolutely right.
Yeah. And so what else is there that you see? What other kind of problems do you see with clients?
I think, another common one is sleep. Sleep seems to be, that's a knowing nod there, Leela. Sleep just seems to be something that many of us compromise and prioritize other things. And it doesn't take very long, unfortunately, for the downsides of that to hit home. But again, especially for the last things that have been going on the last couple of years, people are finding it harder and harder to switch off. So even if they're creating the opportunity to sleep, often it's poor quality sleep.
Right.
And that is a stressor to the body in itself. So then the next day it rolls on. You're more tired, your energy is lower. So what do? It's very easy then, and we all do it, to reach for extra coffees and sugar, sweet, whatever it is. And it's a cycle, and it can be really, really hard to break.
Yeah. Anything else that's kind of typical, common that you've seen?
I think what I would describe as general, two things I would say, actually. Confusion. Confusion. There's so much information about health, about what you should do, what you shouldn't do, what's right, what's wrong, what's healthy, what's not, what's this week's superfood, what's this week's exercise that's suddenly going to give you a six-pack, all this type of thing.
Yeah.
It's so, and people see through that now, but it's so overwhelming. It's all the time that often the default option is just, you know what? No, I'm just not going to do anything.
Yeah.
Or just I'm going to take no action.
And I think actually you've kind of hit the nail on the head there, because there is so much. It's great that there is so much out there, and a lot of it is free and it's available, whether it's on YouTube videos or whatever. But at the same time, a lot of it conflicts and creates a confusion, or this works, that doesn't work, and all of this. And then you kind of like, well, I just don't know what to do, so I'm not going to do anything. And that can be a big problem. It can become overwhelming.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think linked to that, I think we underestimate how individual health is. Because even when we are confused, we'll look to, this supposedly works for 3,000 of these people and they've lost this much weight, or they've done this, that, or the other.
Yeah.
But our personal biology, biochemistry, our lifestyle, everybody really is different. So even if the things that we need to do are the same, how we go about implementing it can be very, very different. And I think that's a frustration for people as well. I'd estimate people probably know 80% of what they need to do with their health, but doing it and making it happen and making it stick is another thing. So that's really where we try and help people.
Yeah. And I'd say to that as well, something I've realized in the last maybe 5 to 10 years is that, in particular for women, it's like everyone's sort of told, I keep getting people saying, oh, you should go running, or you should do this, you should go to the gym. And I used to go to the gym, 4 or 5 days a week. I did a lot more weights than I did cardio, but that's because I was advised that too much cardio will actually have the reverse impact for me, because the stress levels impact on my cortisol, and then I'll hold more weight around my middle and all that sort of stuff. So actually it's balancing that with the weight training. And then there comes a time, which now I'm learning more about, is that when you get to the point when you're coming up, for women I'm talking about specifically, is like menopause and all of that, and how your body is changing, you've got to adapt your, let's call it your training program or your health and fitness program that you follow to suit that, because of the hormonal changes and how your body is behaving. But not a lot of people will tell you that. Like you say, there's like one size fits all. And I hear it so much. It's like people say, well, if you follow this way of eating, you'll easily lose weight, or if you do this, you'll easily lose that. And I'm thinking, well, no, because I know for me that wouldn't work. That will have the opposite effect, possibly because of food intolerances or whatever it might be. So it really is an individual thing. So how do you manage that with clients?
Yeah, you're quite right. It is so individual, and both for men and women, our needs change at different stages of life. Our opportunities change at different stages of life, and our priorities for health change at different stages of life. So in answer to your question, how do we manage that? It's back to getting very clear about that vision and why it's so important.
When you say, sorry to interject, when you say the vision, what do you mean by the vision? The vision of what?
So
I want a client,
for a client, say, what is your vision for your health in 12 months' time? Say, how would you like your health to be? What would you like to be able to do? And why is that important to your lifestyle? Why is that important to your relationships? So it's acknowledging the fact that it's tied into so many areas of life.
Right.
And then it's about building a step-by-step plan for how we get there. And I'm going to be totally honest, which is not something many people in the health and fitness industry will probably do. Some of it's trial and error.
Yeah, I get that.
To be perfectly honest, we have some ideas and we have a lot of experience with certain demographics. Okay, what tends to work in this scenario, and then we try it. And if it works, we keep it. If it doesn't, we adjust it. And again, sometimes it's not so much what we're trying to change, it's how we're going about changing it, how to make it happen for each person. And so there's kind of endless ways, and we work on the belief that there is a way, and we'll find it. And as a team, that's something we press very hard, is that kind of we will leave no stone unturned to finding the right way for that person. Sometimes that involves bringing in other experts. Sometimes it is a matter of trial and error, which I think is another key point here as well, is that people look at what's in the papers and magazines on the internet, and science about health claims this is the way to do something. But one of the things I say to people is that what's most important is when n equals 1. It's about trying it on yourself, because most of the science, or so-called science, about health is usually done in American universities on males aged 18 to 24 who exercise a lot.
Mm-hmm.
That's not the same as you or I or the people that we generally work with. So why should we expect their results to transfer?
It completely makes sense, completely. And as I said, having done a bit of research on it for myself, I now have a program which is very much focused on like metabolism for women who are going through menopause, because it is very, very different to how you would perhaps suggest that men should be training, or the food they should be eating and that kind of thing. So then share with me some of your philosophies around health and fitness.
Okay. One that we talk about a lot, particularly when we're doing work within businesses, is this concept of work-life balance, which is a phrase that is all over LinkedIn and various other places. Sometimes it's people saying, "Look at my work-life balance, isn't it great? This is, I've got it cracked." And then increasingly, there's also people saying, "Look at my work-life balance, it's terrible." Where have I gone wrong? And the way we think about that is that I'm not sure the phrase is particularly helpful in and of itself. So if you think about it, what it does is it separates work and life.
Mm-hmm.
And I think whenever you separate things, you're almost creating conflict.
Mm-hmm.
There's almost like an unconscious assumption there that work is bad and should be avoided and minimized and endured, and that life, on the other hand, is good and that's separate and that's amazing.
And that comes back to that it's like work is that box of let's say 40 hours, 50 hours a week or whatever it is, that we have to go and do something to earn the money to go enjoy life. And even if we hate our job and what we're doing for those 40 or 50 hours, it's okay. And I look at that and I think, and I'm a big advocate of this as well. I talk about creating balance, not about creating work-life balance, but about creating balance in your life. But I also feel if you're in a job that you really don't like, or you're in a toxic environment in a workplace, you want to get out. By tolerating it, I think people miss the bigger impact, which is on your health, coming back to your earlier point about stress and how it can impact your physiology as well. Yeah,
I think you're absolutely right. And I know from your intro here in particular, and your messaging on here, you're really big on people creating the life that they want, not the work-life balance that they want. But I just think if you create this, say, work and life separate, conflict, if you are in constant conflict, that's causing massive stress. Not only for you, that's going to be clear to people you work with, that's going to be clear to your partner, that's going to be clear to your kids. So I think we have to remove that model, if you like, first of all, of work-life balance. And very simply, we talk about life being the big picture, and work is an element of that. I'd be interested on your kind of opinion to the next point, actually. I get fascinated by language and the connotations of different words. And again, I think work being something to be endured, or it's got to be a battle. How do you feel about that?
I completely disagree with that.
Yeah, good.
I think coming back to the point I just made, it's like, if it's something that creates negative feeling, negative emotions, creates a stress, something you hate, you wake up on whether it's a Monday morning or every morning thinking, oh God, I have to go to work. Just think about the impact that's having on your body. Just those thoughts. I have done some studying and education around the impact of how the thoughts, how they affect our body. And that's the first place that problems start. Disease, stress in the body comes from what we focus upon, the thoughts that we're having about things. And if it's a lot of negativity, if it's the stress, the negative emotions, all of that will then just create bigger problems. And we don't recognize it. We often don't recognize it. We put it down to something. You take a pill and it goes away. Taking a pill for me is a plaster. I'm very much about proactive. Anyone who knows me well will know that. I will always look for alternative, holistic ways of managing my health, rather than just as preventative, rather than a sticking plaster solution.
Yeah, completely agree. And again, I think being in this conflict, trying to strive towards this perfect work-life balance, whatever that is, when we ask people, what emotions come up for you when you think about working towards work-life balance, the number one thing people say is guilt that they're not there for their family when they should be, then guilt that when they're with the family that they're not working the way they should be. That's no way to lead life. So yeah, I just think it's so important. I just want to get rid of the word work-life balance. In fact, I think it should be banished. And let's embrace the fact that work can be, or it's an important part of life.
Yeah.
And ideally, it wants to be something that we love, and it forms part of our purpose. But that actually, like health does, it enhances other areas as well. It provides, and I think if we can take that type of mindset and attitude, the knock-on effect on our physical health will be enormous.
Mm-hmm. Hugely, and particularly mental health as well, right?
Yeah. I mean, I don't think separating physical and mental health is necessarily a good thing. I think they're so deeply intertwined that we need to consider them, and I'd like to hear us talk about them more as one and the same. Just health.
Health is that big thing that impacts everything. Yeah, completely. So what, in terms of the philosophies, then what else is there you'd like to share with us?
Yeah, another key one I would say is about personal responsibility. And again, this is for health, but it's kind of for life as well, isn't it?
It is, because I talk about that a lot.
I do, yes, yeah. Which is why I was excited to have this conversation today. But in terms of health, no one is going to do it for us. Our health service here in the UK is fantastic in many ways, but it does virtually nothing proactively and preventatively. So it's on us. It's very easy, and I understand how we can slip into this mindset every now and then of our health being done to us because of external circumstances, because of work, because this happened, because that happened. But the hard reality is that nothing will change until we decide to take responsibility.
Yeah. And so how do you convey that with clients?
I think a lot of clients, when we start working with them, feel quite disempowered when it comes to their health.
When they start with you mean?
Yeah.
You initially, right?
Yeah. Because of that confusion that we talked about earlier, because they've perhaps tried various things before to improve their health, and for whatever reason it hasn't worked. So I think people feel very, very disempowered, and they're almost sometimes beaten before they start. So what we try and do, again, back to that vision, is kind of ignite that enthusiasm again, and that what is possible, how would we like things to be, and encourage people that by approaching it in a different way, by taking that long-term view rather than 6 weeks, got to lose 2 stone, or I've got a holiday, I must get into a bikini, whatever it is.
Yeah.
By embracing this long-term approach to health, that opens up so many possibilities. Even, you know, thinking about when we talk to people about habits and the power of compounding habits.
Yeah.
And you think about it, you don't have to change very many things, but if it's something that you do on a daily basis or on a weekly basis, multiply that over the weeks, over the months, over a year, then you could be in a completely different position in a year's time when it comes to how you look, how you feel, your energy, your confidence, and all those things. So it's about showing what's possible and helping people be open to that.
I love that, because again, it's what I talk about in the sort of bigger picture of life. It's like, what is possible? Anything is possible.
Okay.
It's about getting clear on what you want and then go create it, which requires you to have personal responsibility, to take action and you know, have a plan.
Completely. And for it to be a conscious decision.
Yeah.
You know, look at the flip side and how many people's health has pretty much gone terribly over the last couple of years, you know, lockdowns and things like that. But that's happened without them necessarily realizing it at the time. It's almost at the end, it's like, oh my goodness, what happened here? The same thing happened to me at university. I looked down at the end of university and didn't recognize myself. 3 stone managed to put on. Yeah, quite an achievement. But when we think about it, there's no reason why that can't work the other way. No reason. Yeah. And it can happen even more quickly because we're taking responsibility and we're making conscious decisions.
And tell me a little bit more about sleep, because I think that's something that's quite, well, at least in my experience, historically has been underestimated, the impact of that on our health. Yeah,
I would absolutely agree. I think we are chronically sleep deprived as a nation, and probably many nations are the same. And I heard this fact, which I'm going to quote now and probably get it wrong, but you'll get the idea. It's something like, we are the only animal that consciously delays sleep. So every other animal, if they're tired, sun goes down or whatever, they go to sleep unless their life is in immediate danger. But for some reason, as humans, we think we're clever for staying up a little bit later and later and later and later and watching another episode. Why do we do that? So I think we're chronically sleep deprived, and it has a massive impact. And it's often one of the first places we go with clients, often before even looking at exercise or nutrition, because how much harder is it to make good decisions when it comes to nutrition when you're tired and when you haven't slept?
Yeah.
You know, we call it going upstream. It's like, okay, what's driving those behaviors? How much more motivated are you when you've had a few nights good sleep to exercise, to make good decisions? So yeah, it's hugely important. We spend a lot of time talking about it and helping our clients structure and organize their lives a bit differently to enable better sleep.
And what's your view on when people say they're a night owl or they're an early bird? What is there such a thing?
Yeah, I believe there is. Yeah, I believe there are night owls, I believe there are larks, and I believe there are people in the middle who can kind of go either way. Right. And one of the key things I would say is that most of us know if we're one or the other. And I think it can actually be quite detrimental to try and go against that. Of course, circumstances dictate that every now and then you've got to do what you've got to do, right? But to try and force ourselves into the opposite of what our kind of natural pattern is, I think that can create a lot of harmful stress in the body as well. And I don't think it's a great idea, should we say. So I think you've got to listen to your body and work with it as far as possible.
So is it not the case then that, I'm playing devil's advocate here, but is it not the case therefore that if everyone goes to bed at, I don't know, 10 or 11 o'clock, they can all get up at 6 o'clock and be fine? And bouncing around, or?
I think it's, no, I don't think it is. I think it's potentially missing an opportunity as well. Because if you are a night owl, you might do your best work between 10 and 12. You might be your most creative. You might be your most productive. And then flip that round, you might not be much good before about 10 or 11 in the morning. So why force it? Who wins from that?
Yeah. And that's, I was listening, I've forgotten his name now. There's a podcast episode I was listening to the other day about this. That's exactly that. It was saying about what you said there about, when is your best time to get really focused and do detailed work, or to do creative work, and how do you function in the morning versus it. And I know, even from when I was full-time in employment, my brain always seemed to kick in after lunch, be like, oh, okay, now it's just like I'd be on it. But in the morning, I would deliberately set myself things when I didn't have to do intense work, let's say, or I was on meetings and calls, because those were things that I would be better at in the morning. And even now, I naturally gravitate to doing the more, let's say, focused work where I need more concentration and so forth later on in the day. Where some people are like, no, I've got to do that first thing in the morning. I'm like, no, it's not going to work for me.
Yeah, and there's all sorts of things going on in our bodies, that rhythms, circadian rhythm and things like that. And I think we've got to kind of work with it. So again, otherwise it's this back to this conflict thing again. And conflict creates stress. Stress creates disease. So as far as possible, we want to be avoiding that.
So I know one of the things I mentioned, and this is from a conversation we've had previously, we're going to talk about why gyms and diets don't work. Right.
Yes. Okay. I'll get on my hobby horse here. I'm going to tell you a kind of a story about another one about how Motus came about, to illustrate this, if I may. So upon qualifying, becoming an official personal trainer, and being let loose into the world, I figured I needed to go and get some experience in a gym. So I went to work in a great big gym, one of these huge places, 2,500 members, something like that. Got to work with some clients. I loved it in some ways, but I did mention some of the frustrations as well earlier. And I became interested in how the gym worked as a business as well. And what I found out was a little bit shocking, in so much as if all of the members exercised as regularly as would be useful to improve health, then the gym didn't have nearly enough capacity, let alone in the gym itself, or the changing rooms, or the swimming pool, or the car park.
Right.
I was like, right, okay, hang on. So we're running this business on the assumption that people won't exercise regularly. It just felt all wrong to me. So we're founded on failure. So that was a big eye-opener. A second eye-opener is that, and again, the landscape has probably changed a little bit now, since some time ago. The most profitable bit of most big health clubs is the cafe. And the most profitable, that they make most of their money from selling lattes and muffins, which last time I checked, I know to say each to their own, is not usually a recipe for for excellent health and well-being, let's say. So I was just quite shocked. I guess I was naive, in that a gym, a place to help people be healthy and fit, was actually founded on failure. I started thinking about it, and then you realize any of the back then they weren't online. You used to go and meet in village halls and things, didn't you? The diet clubs, exactly the same thing. Their business model is about people getting some results, then falling off the wagon, again, terrible phrase, failing, and repeating and repeating and repeating. So very soon I had in the back of my mind, I'm not happy about that. That feels wrong. That feels morally wrong. I want to create a business where people getting results, people making improvements. It's a win-win situation. We don't get paid if people don't get results, or if people don't change their lifestyle, if they don't make exercise and other things part of their day-to-day. So that was one of the drivers for, right, we need to do something different here. Does that explain why gyms and diets don't work?
Yeah, interesting. And I totally get it. I mean, I one of the gyms I used to be at had, and I think a lot of them do, those fridges with those sugar fueled drinks.
Oh, yeah. I had this in there where I take my daughter swimming. Vending machines just full of absolute rubbish. I couldn't believe it. What's it doing there? But there's still, sadly, an association for lots of people between exercise and reward being unhealthy food and drink. Don't get me started on that one. I'll definitely get very angry about that. But it starts really young, primary school. Primary schools, they give children sweets, pizzas and stuff because they've played a rounders match. I mean, really? Well, does it make any sense?
Yeah, the reward is food. And if you think about it, even in adulthood, it's a lot of it is celebrate a scat for a meal.
Yeah, the answer to everything almost is usually let's do something unhealthy. I'm not saying like we should never have a takeaway or never at all, but it's the automatic response to everything, isn't it? It's good day, had a drink. Bad day, have a drink. Stressful day, have a drink. Yeah.
And you said the word you use, that automated response. It's what we kind of grow up seeing and doing, and you don't even think about it. Yeah,
so it just becomes this subconscious pattern. So and that's it's those associations and habits that we need to break, and we need to create new ones.
Thank you for sharing that. And something I wanted to just check in on as well is, when I talk about personal branding, which is one of the aspects of the work that I do with people, and how they show up in the workplace, I talk about it as a competitive advantage by having a strong personal brand. So how does that kind of align with health, would you say?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think when we are healthier, or when we are doing better in terms of managing our lifestyle, we are usually more energetic, more focused, more motivated. So you put all those things together, and that becomes a kind of an attractive thing in a workplace. We'll get more done. So I know myself, when I'm kind of doing better with my health and my exercise, and in particular, I would say I'm so much more productive, so much more creative. And I don't even mean just in the moment when you're exercising. That's often, I think, when you get ideas as well, but throughout the rest of the day. So I think another reason why can be a competitive advantage is if you look around your office, kind of sense the energy levels. The likelihood is it's probably not that great. So it's an opportunity to distinguish yourself. I think. And the great thing is, it is within our control. I guess in playing sport when I was growing up, I remember thinking, I am definitely not the most talented here, probably by quite a margin, but I can work harder, or I will work harder than my competitors. when it comes to fitness. I was like, I'll just run all day and see what happens. So if you can use that in a work context by having higher levels of energy, that can overcome so much, even if you're not the smartest person in the room, which I just don't think I've ever been. So.
And also that there is a big connection between physical exercise and how your brain functions, right? It's like you get more clarity, you're able, as you mentioned, focus better, concentration levels, even ability to think and process information, that kind of thing. I think it's much more effective when you've got more oxygen in the brain, which comes from exercising.
Definitely. And then that just makes me think as well of, the impact nutrition has on our energy and on our focus. And it baffles me. So we've been back in various workplaces recently, and you go in there, you go into meeting rooms, and there's biscuits everywhere. And you're like, hang on, aren't we supposed to be doing amazing work in here? Don't we want our minds like working at their best? Biscuits are not going to create that, are they? So again, I think for many businesses, it's an opportunity. If you make health genuinely part of your culture, that's the type of thing you've got to look at. What food is available? What food are you providing in meetings? What catering are you using? Make a huge difference. I'm sure people watching and listening have experienced those moments either themselves or other people in meetings. People struggling to concentrate. That's because they've been at the biscuits for the last hour.
And then they drink coffee.
Yeah.
With milk and sugar.
What a combination.
Yeah, absolutely. So tell me, Darren, what would be the 3 biggest tips you'd like to share as takeaways, things that could be really impactful for people watching or listening?
Okay, 3 things. So number 1, I would say thinking about health as this wider concept, that it's not just what we weigh, it's not just how we look, it's not just how many press ups we can do or how far we can run. It's something that impacts every area of life. It underpins it all. It supports our long-term health, but it's so closely linked to happiness. I think health and happiness are almost one and the same. So when we think about health in those terms, surely that provides us all with the kind of the motivation and the drive to say, right, let's make things better. Let's make some improvements here.
And here's the thing with that. It just reminded me of something I read yesterday, because a lot of people seek happiness from outside, for external factors. Ultimately, happiness comes from within. We get to choose if we're happy or sad. And back to your point, is that by having that energy, that good fitness level, eating well, sleeping well, all that, we would naturally have the happy hormones. I've forgotten the name of them, but you know what I mean.
Endorphins.
Those ones kicking in, which will naturally have us feeling more positive, more happy, have a better outlook on life, to create our own happiness, not relying on, buying stuff and external validation and whatever it might be, or going and having the cake.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, which does work for a few seconds. Let's tell the truth. But briefly. Yeah, no, you're absolutely right, and that also comes back to the competitive advantage, which you just mentioned again. If someone's exuding happiness and energy, I'd say that's a competitive advantage. If someone's exuding happiness, energy, confidence, does that help our personal relationships? And does that help us set an example to our children, our partners, people around us? Yeah, it's huge. Health and happiness. Same thing.
Yeah.
Okay, sidetracked. Key tips. I would say and this sounds very simple, but it's making health a priority. And we've talked about how sleep gets deprioritized, but I think health as a whole gets deprioritized as well. I think quite often we assume that we should just be able to look after ourselves, but it's almost like those skills have been eroded. The skills have been eroded over the years, lifestyles have changed, and just bit by bit, it's got pushed down the list. And I think the benefits to be had by putting it back to the top of the list, as we've spoken about, are enormous. And that's back to the personal responsibility.
Okay, and third?
Third, I'm going to say play the long game. I keep mentioning this 12-month vision, but really it goes beyond that. It's, how do you want our health to be for 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, however long? And it's not just about longevity, it's thinking about the quality of our life over that period of time. And it's, again, coming away from this quick fix fad. How much weight can you lose in a month? 30-day this, 6-week that. Your health it's forever. So for me, it's about playing the long game and being patient and persistent, knowing that those benefits will compound.
Yeah, I like that, the patience and persistence, because I think that's the big part of the problem, isn't it? People want to see things happen quickly, and the minute it's not, then it's very easy to give up.
Yeah, or we're looking for the wrong things. So sometimes, the changes that are happening, we can't see them. So it's trusting that they are, having that faith that they are, or we're using it to give ourselves an excuse. Because it is hard to change habits. It can be hard at the beginning. So we look for the bits that aren't working and ignore the bits that are. Yeah,
exactly. And I guess my last question for you is, because I think motivation is one of the biggest challenges for people. So how do you encourage your clients with the motivation aspect of this, to keep the consistency, to instill those habits and keep doing them every day?
Yeah, there's a big question. And again, I'm going to quote somebody who I don't know. So whoever said this, then brilliant, well done. I think this is a key principle of motivation, is that motivation comes after action.
Right.
Rather than before. So a lot of people are like, right, when I'm motivated, then I will start doing this. When this happens, then I'm going to eat differently. After I get such and such out the way, after the weekend or this event coming up, then I'll have the headspace and the motivation to do this, that, and the other. I think we need to flip that on its head, because motivation comes and goes. It ebbs and flows. There's no way in the world that we're going to be motivated every single day of the week. It's just not going to happen. So it's back to, right, how can we build these habits? How can we make them really easy so they don't require that much effort, and build them up bit by bit so that they don't actually take any effort? And that takes a little bit of time. There is a bit of trust in the process to begin with, but it's putting action first. Does that answer the question?
It does completely, and I know it's so true, because I'm listening and I'm thinking, because I know for myself, when I exercise, it gets me more motivated to do more exercise.
Yeah.
It's the hardest thing is that first step.
Yeah, it's like, I was having this conversation with somebody yesterday about, the hardest thing about going for a walk or for a run is getting your shoes on and getting out the door. Once you've done that bit, then kind of anything else is a bonus. And I think as well, some of it comes down to knowing yourself a little bit. In that some people, if you set really, really easy objectives, they really thrive on that, because it then becomes a habit. It's like, right, I've done that. I've done it this many days in a row. I'm ready for the next step now. Some people need something that's a bit of a stretch and a bit of a push. But again, it comes back to this individualization and trusting the process. And that's something we work through with our clients to figure out what does work for them. What is kind of the formula, if you like, that makes stuff happen. Because assuming that it's the same as your friend's formula is a bit of a reach.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like for some people I know, it's going to the gym, it's got to be the most expensive gym in town and they'll be motivated to go. For me, it's got to be easy parking, easy, like 2 minutes down the road, no brainer. And then I'll use it. If I start, and I've tested it myself years ago. And so I'd always pick gyms that were easy to access. It wasn't out of my way because I knew then I'd start creating stories. I haven't got the time to get there and all of that. And for me, I remember especially when I was at work, I would literally come in, and even sometimes I wouldn't get home till 9 o'clock at night. And the gym closed at 10. As long as I did not sit down, I'd come in, I'd get changed, I'd get my drink, I'd walk back out, and it's like a 10-minute drive, 10-minute walk, 2-minute drive. And people say, well, why don't you just walk? And I'm like, no, because if I know I've got to walk, then I'm not going to go. If I can get in the car, it's 2-minute drive, but I will get in the gym. And sometimes I get there at 9:20, 9:30, and I'd hammer it out on the cross trainer or whatever, do some weights or something. But I've done something that day, which I could easily not have done. But it's making, for me, to answer your point about the different types of people, it's got to be simple.
Yeah.
It's got to be easy.
Yeah. And I would say that's the case with the majority of people, is make it as simple as possible. And something you said then as well is remembering that when it comes to exercise, something is better than nothing. It's very easy to think, oh, I've got to do an hour, I've got to do 5K, I've got to do it, otherwise it's not worth it. It is worth it. It all adds up and it all accumulates. And more importantly, it builds the habit of doing something. So that next week, guess what? You might do a little bit more.
Yeah.
One final thing I think it helps with that kind of motivation issue as well is we call it having a plan A and a plan B. Mm-hmm. Most people, when it comes to their health and their lifestyle, will automatically go to plan A. Like, this is like the perfect week, the perfect day, the perfect morning routine, whatever it is. And then, just like screw it all up and throw it out the window if we don't get perfection. But I say what we find very useful with clients is saying, right, okay, ideal world, this is what the week looks like. This is what we're going to do. What happens if something gets in the way? What happens if school phone up and you've got to go and pick your child up? And you can't, because that happens, stuff happens. What happens if this meeting overruns? What happens if plans change? So one thing we talk about is, okay, let's have a plan B that's kind of okay. It's almost like a maintenance level.
Right.
When plan A doesn't work, which it won't do sometimes, we don't just throw our toys out the pram and say, I'm going to order a takeaway and start again next week. we move to plan B.
Yeah. So it's almost like you have your ideal, what that looks like in a given week. And actually, but even if this is almost like your minimum, just do that.
Yeah.
It's enough to keep sustaining you.
Definitely. Yeah. Yeah. And it helps to get rid of the kind of feast famine type thing, or the kind of yo-yoing effect with exercise and nutrition.
Indeed. Just very quickly, I've just seen Chris's comment. I'm not sure if Chris is still on. Thank you for that. That did make me giggle. Chris, put them back in the kitchen where they belong.
I'm frantically checking my desk to make sure I haven't left them out.
Darren, it has been an absolute pleasure speaking with you. Thank you very, very much for joining me today and for sharing some really eye-opening insights to what is actually possible.
Thank you very much. That's been great. Really enjoyed that, Leila. Thank you.
Thank you. I will speak to you soon. And for those of you who would like to get in touch with Darren, what's the best way to do that, Darren? On LinkedIn?
Yeah, on LinkedIn or our website. Which can we put those in there?
I can add that into the comments. Yeah.
Brilliant. That would be perfect.
Fantastic. Thank you very, very much, Darren.
Thank you.
And so I hope you have all gained some new insights, some thoughts about what you could do differently from listening to Darren today. If you want to know any more, you want to speak to him about some support, then do reach out to him, as I said, on LinkedIn, and we'll pop the website in the comments shortly. Until next time, thank you again for joining me today. And do hashtag replay if you've watched this on replay. Ask any questions, tag me or Darren in, and we will come back and respond. Meanwhile, remember to build your influence, to make an impact, and be remembered for all of the right reasons by showing up as the best version of you. And if you haven't already done so, a quick reminder to grab your copy of the Personal Brand Playbook. The link is in the comments. And also now do head over to my YouTube channel where you can view previous episodes of the lives and also my podcast episodes, all of which are being uploaded there over time. I think we've hit just over 50 now, with some incredible guests from the technology industry sharing their challenges, their wins, their insights, and giving some great open advice and insights for you to benefit from. So do check that out as well. We'll also put that YouTube link in the comments for you. See you next time. Take care and have a good rest of the week.